I want to introduce my friend Cynthia Sandor. She wrote the book Through Innocent Eyes. It's based on her mother's journal that was hidden away for 50 years. And she wrote this book just a couple years ago, and I had the pleasure of meeting her a few months back, and we've got to know each other. And I wanted to do a little interview with her and share the book with you. I'm the author right here in my home.
Thank you.
Cindy. And so tell me about it. What prompted the book writing?
Actually, this is a very unique story. 4 months before my mother passed away from bone cancer, I found her personal journal. You can see it on my website, but it's a green cloth journal with a cloth emblem of the odal ruin pierced by the sword in the lower right-hand corner. And when I opened up the journal, it was written in this German script. My mom's name was in there, and it looked like there were chapter headings. There were pictures of this house, these girls playing with farm animals. But the most striking picture that I saw was the girls all lined up, and they were standing with the Hakenkreuz flag.
All right. So what was your mom's reaction when you decided to write the book?
Oh my God, I brought the book, I brought her journal to the hospital because she was dying from bone cancer, and I brought it to her room and showed it to her, and she just gasped. She could not believe I was holding her journal. At that time was 50 years old. So I showed her the book. I said, Mom, can you read it? Did you write it? Who are these girls? Where's this house? What's this book about? And very delicately, she licked her finger, was flipping through the pages. She said, of course I can read it. I wrote it. I was very proudly in the Hitler Youth.
Right.
And do you think my life was not turned upside down? And my mom looked at me, and she pointed her finger at me and said, and don't show this book to anyone because they'll kill you. And I went, all right, what's in the book? I want to know what's in this book. And she, for the remainder of her time together, right, she told me about her time growing up in Landjahr Lager.
And that's the main theme of the book, and it starts off in Austria, right, with her being a little girl. Tell us a little bit about the initial setting of the book.
The initial setting is with her and her hometown of Kleinsell, pre-World War II, and what life was like with her, her mother, and her siblings. She was the fourth child born into the family. Her father had passed away from tuberculosis earlier, and so it was her mother and her. It was my mother's mother, Josepha, my mother, and then her four siblings that had grown up in Kleinsell. Now they had lost everything. They lost the farm. They were totally broke, and they had to give up everything. And one of the neighbors took them in and helped them get on their footing. So when Hitler had come in and took over Austria during the Anschluss, because my grandmother was a single woman raising 5 children by herself, Hitler gave her 1,000 Reich marks so she can get her own house, so she can buy a car, a washing machine, clothes for the family, and get a job.
Right. And then, who are the main characters? You just kind of briefly touched on. Her brothers, they go on to serve in the military.
Yes, when 1938 was mandatory that everyone had to join into the Hitler Youth. So there's 2 divisions, the boys, which was the Hitler Youth, and the girls, which was known as the Bund Deutsche Mädel. The first group that my mom went into is the Young Girls League, very similar to the Brownies.
Brownies are Girl Scouts.
Exactly.
I'm an Eagle Scout. It reminded me a lot of my scouting days.
Yes.
You're reading the book.
Very
all
similar.
the different tasks and life skills that they learned during their time there. And tell us about, now your mom was special though. She got picked out based on achievement and her scores by the Reich to go on to the main part of the book where it takes place at the Landsjäger house. So tell us, how did that work out?
That when she was in the Jungmädelbund, every month their troop leader kept records of all the girls, and those who had excelled in their achievements and and they have accomplished more in the sports and their crafts, whatever it was, all this information went to the Reichsministry of Education, Science, and Culture, and they kept tabs on all the girls and what they did. And they noticed that my mom had excelled in her troop, which was in Kleinzell, Austria, and the Reichsministry sent my grandmother a letter saying that my mother was specifically chosen to join this elite rural educational group called Landjahrlager. And she was ecstatic. It was paid for by the government, and my mother traveled, was over 450 miles away from Kleinzell, now through Czechoslovakia, up into Dresden, and right into Poland.
And you've been there yourself.
I was there.
You researched the book, and you got to meet some of the characters in the book, correct?
Unbelievable. I was, by a stroke of luck, whatever you want to call it, I found the owners of the house, Marguerite and her family. I met with them, and I brought the journal with me, and Marguerite took me on the big trip all through that my mom wrote about in her journal. So we went to all the places that my mother stayed at, where she went. In addition to that, the last 4 remaining survivors of Landjahrlager Seidorf left their contact information. So I was able to meet with them before I left to come back here to the States, and I was in correspondence with them for over a year, going back and forth. They gave me copies of their journal, photos from their journal, and so I was able to put all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Now, when we read a lot of books on World War II or the National Socialist period, we get a lot of funny ideas. And now this one's, your book's different because it's written by a person who actually lived there.
Yes.
It's not secondhand knowledge. It's not books on books written on books. This is actual a real account. This is your own mother. So what do you think we could gain from, you know, when I read it, I like to hear, like, because you're really in the setting, you're really in the moment, you're living there with the girls, you're going through the daily tasks, their little adventures. And one of the adventures I liked was the pig baptisms. You want to talk about the little pig baptisms? This is kind of a, it's like for anybody out there who's been around Future Farmers of America, you know how the children get an animal to raise. Go ahead.
When they went to Landjahr, there were 2 little pigs, and they could not come close to the pigs because they could not name them. So the pig baptism was their name, the day naming ceremony. And the entire village was invited to go to this baptism. My mother was in charge of orchestrating it, and the girls helped her put it together, and they had a little parade, and they went to the stall, which was beautifully decorated, absolutely clean, spotless. They had flowers all over, they had the wreath set up, it was beautiful. And they consecrated the pigs with the name Thick and Skinny by putting salt in their mouth and blessing them with the oil and the water and naming them Thick and Skinny. From that moment on, the pigs can do absolutely anything they wanted. And they ran through the house, they went upstairs in the rooms, they went through the dining room, they went downstairs in the kitchen. They had the whole run of the house. And the next day, the butcher came over and slaughtered the pigs.
Right. Dinner time.
It was a barbecue.
And then that's another thing. Like a lot of the times we see the Hitler Youth is all an indoctrination, brainwashing, and all this business. But in reality, there was a lot of life skills learned.
Yes.
There was a lot of interaction with the farming community, with the different tradespeople.
Yes.
And you know that comes out through the book. It wasn't just this whole mind washing that we get in other television programs in this.
Absolutely not. The brainwashing, especially the thing that gets me is how the girls were raised just to bear children. That was not their duty. They were being taught the fundamental building blocks to become productive members of society when they became age.
And they got to put on plays in front of the community. They got to go on little hiking trips.
Yeah.
There was a lot to it. It's not, you know, what some people think.
No, it wasn't just that they were learning this and that was it. It was such a detailed program because the whole society knew that the strength of their people come from how strong their people are. The whole country can come together. And when you're working together with building the sense of community, everybody knows what they need to do. They have certain responsibilities. That's where the strength of the country comes from. They were not on social welfare. They didn't have entitlement programs. My mother was very proud to the day she died. When I showed her her book, her whole disposition changed.
And inside, they grew their own food.
They grew their own food.
They made their own clothing. They did the laundry. They did a lot more than most people do today for themselves.
They were very self-sufficient. The girls needed to learn how to take care of the home. Not only take care of the home, but how to manage the finances for the home. What it cost to feed each person, what it cost to do the work. They worked with the farmers. They helped in the hay fields. They helped in the potato fields, planting and harvesting. They milked the cows. They took care of the chickens. They had the material from their cloth was made out of the flax plant, and so the weavers would make the material, and the girls would it was supplied to the girls because everything was paid for by the government, and the girls would learn how to make their own uniforms, their own aprons, their own handkerchiefs. They would make the curtains for the windows, the tablecloths, the napkins, everything, because they were totally self-sufficient. They had the sewing machines there, everything that they needed.
I think that's fantastic.
It was wonderful.
Now, what would you like readers to take away from the book?
Well, what I find going to the various living, the history, World War II reenactments, what people have told me when they read the book is that my book is helping them to answer so many questions that they've had unanswered because their grandmother was in the Bunddeutsche Mädel, or their aunt was, or their mother was. And they didn't want to talk about it because of the stigma. So here, this is resolving some issues for people who can understand, especially women, who can understand what it was like for their family, their parents, or their mother, or their grandmother growing up in the Bunddeutsche Mädel.
Because everyone was participating.
Everyone was participating.
Everyone was participating, yes. Okay. Is there any additional things we'd like to tell the audience?
Well, I think overall I'm blessed to have been able to be given the skills to write this book. This is the very first book beside Anne-Marie Lipton's Lanier Lager book in Schleswig-Holstein, which is only printed in German. And I had the wonderful opportunity to find declassified materials, the actual educational pamphlets that were used, all written in the Fractor script. And my neighbor, Irma Rosich, who is actually Vanna White's stepmother, she spent an entire year with me every day, or practically every day, translating the documents that I would give to her to help me research and put everything together.
That's fantastic.
So not too many people know that.
That's fantastic. And where would we, if someone would like to purchase it, where would be the best place to purchase the book?
Best place right from BalboaPress.com. The publisher is Balboa, which is Louise Hayes' company. And you can also go, and to receive an autographed copy, you can go to my website, CynthiaSandor.com, or you can also get it on Amazon.
I highly recommend the book for anyone who's interested in real history. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, Matt.